بكم محاضرات طلبة الصف الثالث كلية الطب مادة الفارماكولوجي. اليوم نبدأ المحاضرة الأولى من موضوعات Nonsteroidal Anti-Inflammatory Drugs, which is abbreviated by NSAIDs. Introduction. Nonsteroidal anti-inflammatory drugs, that means we have other type of anti-inflammatory drugs called steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs. We'll discuss in the later lectures. So, nonsteroidal anti-inflammatory drugs are effective in treatment of rheumatoid arthritis, seronegative spondyloarthropathies, example psoriatic arthritis, and associated with inflammatory bowel disease. Also used for the treatment of osteoarthritis, also used for treatment of localized musculoskeletal syndromes like sprains and strains, also in the management of low back pain and gout. Because of anti-inflammatory properties are used to suppress the sign and symptom of inflammations. As you know, the sign and symptom of inflammations about fire, pain, hotness, tenderness, redness, and limitation of movement. These drugs also exert antibiotic and analgesic effects in addition to the anti-inflammatory effects. What about classifications of nonsteroidal anti-inflammatory drugs? Classified into non-selective COX inhibitors and to the selective COX-2 inhibitors. And sometimes some books add or some reference add paracetamol to the nonsteroidal anti-inflammatory drugs, and some books omit the paracetamol from nonsteroidal anti-inflammatory drugs. So the first type is non-selective COX inhibitors. Example acetic acid, an example of acetic acid diclofenac, as you know, which is called Voltaren, phenamide, naphthyl alkanone, oxycam, propionic acid, example morphine and its groups, salicylate, including aspirin and diflunisal, and we will discuss aspirin in details as both type of nonsteroidal anti-inflammatory, especially non-selective type, choline, magnesium, trisalicylate, example salicylate. Other types of nonsteroidal, other class of nonsteroidal anti-inflammatory drugs is selective COX-2 inhibitors, and this includes ciloxicib and rifoxicib, and we will discuss ciloxicib in details as a broad type of selective COX-2 inhibitors. This is chemistry and pharmacokinetics of nonsteroidal anti-inflammatory drugs, and selective ibuprofen, indole derivatives, indomethacin example, phenyl acetic acid derivative example diclofenac, and oxycam example piroxicam. This is the chemical structures of some types of nonsteroidal anti-inflammatory drugs. What about properties of aspirin and some nonsteroidal anti-inflammatory drugs? This table summarizes the half-lives, urine excretion of unchanged drugs, recommended anti-inflammatory dose, although the table is inverse. Aspirin, salicylate, abazone, ciloxicib, diclofenac, etc., phenobarbital, etc., and this table shows the half-lives and urine excretion. For example, half-life of aspirin about 0.25 hours. Urine excretion of unchanged drug less than 2%. Recommended dose 1,200 to 1,500 milligram TID, and etc. for other types of nonsteroidal anti-inflammatory drugs. What about pharmacodynamics? How nonsteroidal exert their anti-inflammatory activity? The anti-inflammatory activity of the nonsteroidal anti-inflammatory drugs is mediated chiefly through, first, inhibition of biosynthesis of prostaglandins, second, inhibition of chemotaxis, third, downregulation of interleukin production, fourth, decreased production of free radicals and peroxide, and lastly, interference with calcium-mediated intracellular events. All these activities mediate the anti-inflammatory activity of non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs in the near side. Aspirin irreversibly stimulates and blocks platelet cycloogenase, while most non-COX-selective non-steroidal anti-inflammatories are reversible inhibitors. And this is a criteria is unique for aspirin, which is irreversibly stimulate and block platelet cycloogenase. Selectivity for COX-1 versus COX-2 is variable and incomplete for older member, but in the new member it is complete. The highly selective COX-2 inhibitors do not affect platelet function at their usual dose. Also, non-steroidal can decrease the sensitivity of muscle to bradykinin and histamine, affect lymphokine production from T lymphocyte, and reverse the vasodilatations of inflammation. This is another activity or another mechanism of action for anti-inflammatory properties of non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs. What about side effects? All the non-steroidal anti-inflammatories share the same side effect. Like what? Like gastric irritations, which is the most common side effect of non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs. It is a gastric irritation. Although, as a group, the newer agent tend to cause less gastric irritation than aspirin and it is relative. Second side effect is nephrotoxicity. Third side effect is a hepatotoxicity. So, we will discuss aspirin as a prototype of acylated non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs. And as you know, aspirin is a common drug used for prevention and prophylaxis for transient ischemic attack, ischemic heart disease, and used in large doses as anti-inflammatory and rheumatological disease. Although aspirin is now rarely used as an anti-inflammatory medication, it has been replaced by other non-steroidal like ibuprofen and naproxen, since they are effective and also available over the counter and can be easily obtained by a patient from their market or pharmacies and have good to excellent safety records. Pharmacokinetics of aspirin in details. Aspirin is a salicylic acid and is a simple organic acid. Aspirin, stearin salicylic acid, another name for aspirin, has a pKa of 3.5. Sodium salicylate and aspirin are equally effective anti-inflammatory drugs, though aspirin may be more effective as an analgesic. The salicylates are rapidly absorbed from the stomach and upper small intestine, yielding a peak plasma salicylate level within 1 to 2 hours. So these are the salicylates are rapidly absorbed from the stomach and upper small intestine. Aspirin is absorbed as such and is rapidly hydrolyzed to acetic acid and salicylate by esterases in tissues and blood. Salicylate is bound to albumin, but the binding and metabolism of the salicylate are saturable so that the unbound fraction increases as total concentration of the drug increases. As doses of aspirin increase, salicylate elimination half-life increases from 3 to 5 hours for 600 mg per day dosage to 12 to 16 hours dosage more than when the concentration exceeds 3.5 gram per day. Alkalization of the urine increases the rate of excretion of a free salicylate and its water-soluble conjugate, and this modality, this way, used to decrease the clearance of the body or clearance of the salicylate from the body during the salicylate or aspirin poisoning. This is the structures of the aspirin and sodium salicylate. This is the chemical structures sharing the same ring group. Aspirin is converted to the acetic acid and salicylate by esterases in tissues and blood, and salicylate converted by conjugation with gluconic acid to ester and other gluconides or ethyl gluconide, by conjugation with glycine to saliciuric acid, also converted to the free salicylate, could be become as such free salicylate, or converted by oxidation to the gentistic acid in about 5% of case of the drugs. Mechanism of action of aspirin. For anti-inflammatory effects, aspirin is a non-selective inhibitor of both COX isoform, but salicylate is much less effective inhibiting either isoform. Also, aspirin as anti-inflammatory effect act as oxygen radical scavengers. Also, aspirin as anti-inflammatory effects act by irreversible inhibition of COX and inhibit platelet aggregation. All these are mechanisms make aspirin play as anti-inflammatory activity, while non-stated salicylate do not as this activity by irreversible inhibition of COX. For analgesic effects, its effect on inflammation and it's probably inhibit pain stimuli at a subcortical site. The drug act analgesic effect by what? By decreasing the inflammation, and when the inflammation is decreased, the pain is decreased as peripheral, but also by inhibiting the pain at subcortical site, I mean centrally. For antipyretic effect mediated by both COX inhibition in the central nervous system and inhibition of interleukin 1. Inhibition of the COX centrally and inhibition of interleukin 1 lead to what is called antipyretic effect of aspirin. For antiplatelet, as I mentioned in the previous lecture, in the previous slides, aspirin reversibly inhibit platelet COX 1, and this will lead to that aspirin's antiplatelet activity lasts for 8 to 10 days, which is the half-life of the platelet. As you know, the half-life of the platelet is about 9 days. What about indication or uses or clinical uses of aspirin? Aspirin used in mild to moderate pain. Second, combined with opiate analgesia for treatment of cancer pain. High-dose salicylate are effective for treatment of rheumatic fever, rheumatoid arthritis, and other inflammatory joint conditions. Aspirin decreases the incidence of transient ischemic attacks, unstable angina, coronary artery thrombosis with myocardial infarction, and thrombosis after coronary artery bypass grafting, bypass surgery. Also, they found by certain epidemiological studies that long-term use of aspirin at low doses is associated with low incidence of colon cancer and possibly related to its COX inhibiting effect, and some literatures say unknown mechanism. What about dose of aspirin? The optimal analgesic or antipyretic dose of aspirin is less than 0.6 to 0.65 gram oral dose commonly used, while in children is 50 to 75 milligram per kg per day in divided doses, and the average starting anti-inflammatory dose for adult is 45 milligram per kg per day in divided doses, as mentioned in the previous table. Side effect, as mentioned, aspirin is one of the non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs, so it shares the same side effect of the non-steroidal anti-inflammatory effects. So at the usual dose, aspirin's main adverse effects are gastric upset or gastric intolerance and gastric and duodenal ulcer, hepatic toxicity, bronchospasm, asthma, rashes, and hepatotoxicity. Renal toxicity occur less frequently. Other types of aspirin group called non-stated salicylate. These drugs include magnesium choline salicylate, sodium salicylate, and salicylate. Are effective anti-inflammatory drugs, less effective analgesic than aspirin, are much less effective than aspirin in COX inhibition. They may be preferable when COX inhibition is undesirable, such as in patients with asthma, those with bleeding tendencies, and even under close supervision, those with renal dysfunction. COX-2 inhibitors, selective inhibitor, the previous drugs of aspirin and nonsteroidal are non-selective, but now we'll discuss COX-2 selective inhibitors. Example, COXIBs. COX-2 selective inhibitors or COXIBs were developed in an attempt to inhibit prostaglandin synthesis by COX-2 isoenzyme induced a site of inflammation without affecting the action of the constitutively active housekeeping COX-2 isoenzyme, which is found in the gastrointestinal tract, kidneys, and platelets. COX-6 selectively bind and block the active site of the COX-2 isoenzyme much more effectively than of COX-1. COX-2 inhibitors have analgesic, antibiotics, and anti-inflammatory effects similar to those of non-selective non-steroidal, but with an appropriate halving of gastrointestinal effects. Thank you.